Have you ever felt that deep ache inside of you? It's a longing that you can't quite explain. What if I told you that this feeling isn't something to fix, but it's actually a map to follow? We are living through a massive shift. We're moving from the age of ignorance toward the age of subjectivity. And today, Hayden and I are going to talk about how to navigate this shift and how to turn your inner longing into your life's true mission. Welcome to Becoming You, the Path to Consciousness, where we apply spiritual wisdom and truth to your everyday life. I'm Terry Hasty.
And I'm Hayden Hasty.
If this is your first time tuning in, we want to let you know we're not going to talk about politics or personalities.
I would like to, but
it doesn't do any good.
Time.
But we are committed to helping build the bridge between what is in the process of dissolving, actually being destroyed, and what is being created. And if you have been with us before, thank you so much for joining us again and for being part of building a more conscious world together. And we hope you'll consider participating in our private online project at becomingyoujourney.com.
This episode is the third part of a three-part series. In part one, we spoke about the age of ignorance, which we are in right now, and hopefully moving towards the end of that. The second level was the movement into the middle zone. And now in this episode, we're going to speak about the age of subjectivity, which is the destination of all of this insanity that we are a witness to.
And I think we could talk a little bit more about that, because I know what ignorance is in myself. And when I see it out there, I know what the middle zone, this bridge that there is between ignorance and things getting better. But subjectivity is just kind of a little less obvious in this context.
Well, let me say it again, that the age of subjectivity, and there's other words that we can use for that, but this is the destination of all of this upheaval and destruction that we are witness to. As has been, just like your own life, there's been a destination that has been involved in it since you were born. But, you have to ask the question, do we really know what ignorance is? If I said that ignorance is the opposite of enlightenment, or that ignorance is the absence of truth, of consciousness, then I'm sorry to say this, we're all ignorant.
Thanks for pointing that. I was thinking, you were right. On the surface level.
It's a good, realistic place to start.
On the surface level, I know what ignorance is, but I hear what you're saying with that.
Well, it's not about the intellect or cognitive abilities, but it is what the age of subjectivity is all about. It's about the transition that we are making from a linear, physical, measurable, sensory reality to a nonlinear, spiritual, immeasurable, intuitive reality. And people all over the world are becoming less and less satisfied with the outward surface of life and the meaninglessness that all of that creates over time.
And that's been coming for a while.
Yes, but it's not that one should not enjoy the wonderful experiences in the physical world, that we are not advocating dismissing that. How wonderful it is to go to the beach. How wonderful it is to go on an exotic vacation. But what is happening is that more and more individuals are beginning to seek that satisfaction, not out there in the material world that we now see literally collapsing before our eyes, but seeking that truth inside of themselves. So the age of subjectivity at a simple level is going to be about the journey of the soul, the transcendent within each of us, and the time has come in the evolutionary process for us to be able to make this climb and reach this understanding. And this is what the age of ignorance is about.
Or it's facilitating it.
Yes, it's collapsing the old in order to make room for this, for the new world to be born in the middle of all of this stupidity.
I think, Hayden, one of the most challenging things for me, and I told you I didn't sleep that well last night because I had a lot going on in my brain, it's challenging to pay attention to these invisible dynamics like the journey of the soul, when there's so much right in front of our eyes. My gosh, it's just nonstop.
This shift in consciousness, actually, in my opinion, is the only safeguard we have for mankind, which is a shift in consciousness. And so in order for that to happen, then, here comes the collapse and getting rid of the old.
I like how you said that. It made me think of back in the day, you used to say John Wayne isn't coming, you're going to have to figure this out. And there's a truth to that it is the only safeguard for us.
Right,
is to move inside.
Right, except you're not alone. To increase our understanding of the age of subjectivity, which is the topic in this episode, there are really three dynamics that can be really helpful in creating this map from the age of ignorance through the middle zone to the age of subjectivity, and it's extremely simple. I sometimes refer to it as this, as IE. The I stands for involution. That is to say that the soul is buried deep within you. It is basically hidden and veiled by all of these layers of the mind, but it is still there. Only what is involved in you at birth can, and here comes the E, can evolve. Evolution is the pathway by which the individual seeks that understanding and truth of themselves. And the R stands for realization, which is the technique by which the individual will pull that off and reach, for example, enlightenment or self-realization. So beginning to understand involution and evolution and realization, in my opinion, can be so helpful to us in these times.
So it's there. It's just our work in our life to evolve that and to wake up, and that realization is of spiritual wisdom and truth, for example, is a way that we can wake up, which a lot of people are talking about right now. A lot of people are talking about this kind of issue of waking up in individual conversations I have with people. I hear it in different videos.
The question is waking up to what? That's the missing piece of the puzzle.
It kind of makes me think of waking up from a bad dream, a really bad dream, and you wake up and it takes a minute to reorient and you're like, oh, thank God. And I'm back in my bed, in my life, and everything is, I didn't lose that person. I didn't drive my car off a cliff, whatever, the nightmare was about. But it's not just about going back to safety. This is how my life is. I didn't have to deal with that trauma that I dreamed about. And is it an individual event or is it a collective?
Well,
this
first
age
of all,
of subjectivity, is it an individual or collective?
Well, first of all, the safety is not out there. The only safety that exists is the safety that you create inside of yourself. But this is the engine, or you could say the inner engine of the entire universe. As I've said before, if it's true about the universe, it's true about you. So the engine of the universe, involution, evolution, and realization, it's the same engine about your own individual life. If the spiritualization of the planet is the destination, which has been prophesied for centuries upon centuries, then that means that your life is about the same thing and that it isn't a random series of events. It's a deliberate curriculum that your soul has chosen in order to increase its evolving ability to realize that truth and understanding of itself.
I love that. If I'd known what was coming, that it wasn't a random, just a bad luck, things didn't work out how I thought they were, how I wanted them to work out, so forth, then I could have had a whole different experience of that.
So the age of subjectivity is the awakening to these understandings and this destination that lies ahead of us. And that means that the collapse that we're witnessing isn't an accident either. I don't know if that's going to be of any consolation to anybody, but it's not an accident either. And the entire process is being governed not by the individual, but by the evolutionary process itself, which has its own agenda. For the most part, no one individual would say that they're in favor of suffering, murder, that we are witness to on TV today. a constant crisis, economic
People going
instability.
hungry.
Right. But that is what is happening. But if no one's in favor of it, then how did it happen? It does mean that the engine of evolution is about reaching that destination. And if you increase your understanding of how the engine works, then you increase your understanding of how to reach the destination, which is the whole point. The more you learn about these dynamics of your beautiful, sacred life, the more you increase your ability to live your life from the level of a master instead of living through, or as we spoke about before, being dragged along. But you are going to go. It's just that if you go consciously, the path becomes so much easier.
This makes me think of in Alice in Wonderland when Alice is traipsing along the path and there's a fork in the road and she sees the Cheshire Cat up in the tree and she asks the cat, excuse me, which way do you think I should go? And the cat says, that depends a good deal on where you want to get to. And she says, I don't care. And the cat responds, and it doesn't really matter which way you go, but you do care. And I do care. I definitely want to get out of the age of ignorance. I do care where my life goes. I don't want my head to hit the pillow on that last day and realize that I was kind of clueless.
Well, this concerns all of us, which is we believed, living in a culture of materialism, that was our destination.
Acquiring,
make money,
achieving.
Acquiring, being successful,
Yeah.
the material aspects of life that would then substantiate that we have succeeded. And now we see the results of that at the collective level that are taking the entire process apart.
And we see so much evidence of people that are not only standing up for one another, which I believe that human beings have always had the capacity to do that, but becoming more and more courageous about consciously saying this is the destination, that we have to go this route. In other words, whether it's all for one and one for all.
You've mentioned this several times, and I think I have used it too, this word awakening. But the question, is awakening to what? And the answer actually is pretty simple. It's the awakening that we are witness to today of the spirit and the physical. The middle zone to me is about the preparation for the age of subjectivity. And we discussed a number of those skills in the last episode in discussing the middle zone about what the individual can begin to practice that's going to create this umbilical connection to the spiritual, to the divine, to God.
As that continues, Hayden, what are some of the changes that you think we'll see coming down the road, and hopefully sooner than later?
I think it could very well be happening now, but, I'm not a soothsayer. I don't know the time frame of this. I do know that we have yet to move into the middle zone yet. So the age of subjectivity could be, some years away, but it's like anything else. It's like starting a job for your first day. It may take years to gain the skills of an expert, of someone who is viewed as a mentor, for example, as a guide, to have those kind of skills in your professional life. Well, the spiritual life is not that different.
I'm not sure it really matters the years or how long. It's that I want to be involved in the process.
Exactly. So it really doesn't matter where or when it takes place. It is taking place right now. But the fact that it exists can provide each one of us a great deal of relief of knowing that this is not accidental, that it is purposeful, that it has a destination, and that we are part of it.
It makes me think of when I first started Pilates, and there's this saying that the teachers would share that Joseph Pilates said about the practice, that if you practice Pilates 3 times a week for 6 weeks, you'll change your body. And I was like, dang, I wish I'd started this 6 weeks ago. So it's really like no time like the present. We got to start somewhere.
Exactly.
Right.
But some of the changes that we will be witness to that will, and like I said, that they very well could begin in the middle zone, is really a deepening of inner practice, a noticeable shift towards the pursuit of spiritual realization that will become really almost mainstream. If I had to predict, I'd say that we'll be seeing that in 5 to 7 years, but that is what is happening. Individuals will increasingly start prioritizing their inner development and their self-realization over, but not in place of, their outer wonderful physical life. Again, it's a merging of the two, of the spirit into the
And just
physical.
like what we said in the last podcast, Hayden, it is about, too, developing that discernment, because there's so much out there, especially with the advent of AI and things online, of these false teachers. And I don't want to sound critical of anybody, but of people that are simply using this kind of idea to gain notoriety or gain followership or
Right, it
benefit
just operate
themselves.
out of their ego. Well, that's why we spoke about those skills in the middle zone, starting off with authoritative discernment, which is, keep your eyes open and pay attention and trust yourself. We will see an integration of this thing called spirituality or spiritual insights into all kinds of fields in science, psychology, and hopefully one of my favorite ones, what I hope we will see is it taking place in education. We're already increasing our awareness of the interdependence of the spiritual and material aspects of our lives. But with social media, we can already begin to see the more and more reporting of this, more and more reporting of near-death experiences, spiritual transformational experiences that people are sharing
Well, it's
online.
like Anita Moorjani. She wrote the book, her book, Dying to Be Me, about her near-death experience. And we've watched several interviews of her speaking about that. And in one of them, she said if this had happened to her several decades ago, she doesn't think it would have really gotten any attention, that people would have dismissed the whole thing as woo-woo, and that she said people are hungry for, I remember that line, people are hungry for this kind of information, that there is more to life than meets the eye. There is so much more unfolding and layers upon layers of, and the depth of what is our lives are about.
Except for the fact that consciousness picks up where everything else leaves off.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be careful about going back and referring to the old as the pathway to the new.
And like mindfulness, of course, is super helpful and can be a stepping stone to consciousness. Mindfulness is about observing my mind and my responses and some of the background to that, and trying to manage that so that I don't continue to hurt myself, hurt my relationships. Consciousness, that's really what's happening now through this destruction, and it's going to lead to the age of subjectivity. The mind is not even the reference point anymore, so I don't have to struggle with the mind or reconcile the mind or reconcile my past. It's really about my soul, as we mentioned, my psychic being, or your psychic being, your higher being.
The transcendent.
That's the reference
within.
point.
It's the higher part of you that lies inside of you. And, you're absolutely right about that. And those are the two worlds in which we live. Our horizontal physical lives and our vertical spiritual lives that are seeking to evolve and realize itself in physical form. But one of the changes that we'll see is a renaissance of spirituality, or renaissance of truth, and increase in, like I said, in all kinds of fields, but also in art and in literature, even in social media, as to how this is communicated to the masses.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No,
I
you're
didn't mean
fine.
to. I think that's why the arts and literature and education have always through history been under attack, because they do tend to reveal this truth that the human being's trying to express in whatever way the individual can. It does reflect this deeper insight into human nature and the divine. I mean, so much of art and music that you actually feel the divine when you're listening to music or looking at the art.
Except you will understand that connection and that feeling, which right now we do not. Now, I realize that's a blanket statement, but it's pretty true. The new paradigms that will be emerging will reveal that the understanding of the invisible, the understanding of the spiritual, is as valid a form of knowledge as that which is measurable and linear. And the fact that the visible can only be understood by understanding the invisible. And it's very contrary to our educational process, to what we are taught about ourselves.
But there's a knowing that we all have about that invisible. We just don't
We
always
know
have
there's something else.
the
We know
language for it.
we know that we're more than what we have become. We just don't know what to do about it. We've tried all the old stuff, but it hasn't worked.
As we continue to apply this kind of internal exploration and knowledge and truth, we're also going to see the shift in community. And I mean, you can see it now in connection.
Right.
The strengthening of communities that's focused on whether it's spiritual or just a collective awareness, compassion, empathy, integrity, this collective consciousness. And we'll see, I think, increased collaboration. We already see it between different traditions and practices when the monks were traveling last year.
Well, we were witness to it right here in Asheville, in the middle of a disaster for which there are no words to describe what happened here, but a visible increase in community and crossing over lines and boundaries to help one another.
1,000%. Right. It's going to be, I think, Hayden, when you mentioned that, I remember being so moved to tears at the convoys of people coming from north, south, east, and west. Even though there were no roads open, they still found ways. By air. They came anyway.
By helicopter.
To help us after that hurricane. There's going to be this visible and, I don't want to say powerful, really, display of unity, harmony, peace, and compassion of human beings. That's part of the human being experience, is to help one another.
But it will not be based on the old. It will not be based on the mind, but will be based on greater spiritual understanding, not because you should do it, ought to do it, have to do it, but because we are learning that that's how it works.
It's not sustainable anymore. It's not in alignment with the evolutionary movement that's underway.
And to be specific, it's not in alignment with the destination. This movement through the middle zone to the age of subjectivity is going to create a giant shift in the collective, but it's going to come by way of individual effort and individual transformations.
Well, to me, we're already seeing this shift towards spiritual awakening that in time is going to replace the old mental constructs. It's hard almost to imagine that could happen because it's been so long coming, but nothing stays the same. So even though that was the basis of the old world, it's not going to be the basis for the new world. And it's the difference between like using a flashlight when the power goes out and seeing the sun when the daylight appears. And I think we are witnessing a massive shift in what we consider to be real, because we're moving away from a world defined just by what we can see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and moving into a reality defined by our internal experience and how we are on the inside. It's not just about looking out at the world and waiting for something to change. It's about looking in. But I think these subjective insights and spiritual realizations are becoming just as valid as the objective world that we see and engage with.
Well, this is the age of subjectivity at work. The only true strength that any of us have is inner strength. The only truth is the truth that was established in the creation of the universe itself, that has been expressed and known in ancient Vedic scriptures for thousands of years. But it is a truth that is contained in the individual. There's no such thing as my truth, even though we've all said that, my truth is a substitute for the real thing. And all religions have played their part in this sacred unfolding, but they are incomplete. And the reason we know they're incomplete is because they've not been able to spiritualize mankind. The age of subjectivity is about the realization of this truth and then the bringing down of that truth into the physical world.
And I think that another implication, and one that represents a truly radical shift, is that the mind is actually the source of disease and dysfunction. It's not the body. And if the mind is the source of disease, then the mind is also the source of the cure. I was reading recently about the Black Plague, and doctors, even in the 30s, said that the number one reason people came down with the plague and died was really fear more than it was, and sadness. I thought that was fascinating, fear and sadness. So if we truly get it, then we can stop kind of being victims of this unconscious biology, like this is done unto me, but that I'm actually the creator of my experience. And we can start being more well. We can start enjoying being in our bodies and realize, I love this. I don't know where I read this recently, Hayden, that there are two physicians. You got the physician at the doctor's office or the hospital, but then there's also the physician within, and that the physician within has greater influence than the one without. And of course, doctors will tell you the same thing. We make ourselves sick, so that stands to reason that we can make ourselves well. And it forces us to kind of ask a whole different question of healed from what. We tend to think of getting healed from what's in the triangle of mind, body, and emotions.
And what is in the physical body.
Yeah.
What is the correct word for radical times 10? I don't know what that word is.
Extreme radical.
Extreme radical. But the concept and the idea of the mind being the source of disease is not radical. Because we've all made ourselves sick.
And it's not new.
And it's not new. Who hasn't made themselves sick? Who hasn't realized this before? The more unenlightened the mind is, the more unenlightened the body remains. And no one is immune to this. I'm not dismissing medicine at all. It's a miraculous, invaluable resource to help us gain some balance and stability. But there's a lot that we're going to start learning that we can begin to do for ourselves.
I'm sure we'll talk about this, but the body itself, because it is matter, it's the most recalcitrant, it's most stubborn to change, whereas the mind and the emotions are more fluid, even though, of course, they can be stubborn too. But the body really needs our help in adding some consciousness to that. What I think is really fascinating is it's not required to be a top-down relationship anymore. It's not about following a guru or joining a specific group or having these rigid kind of rituals. I see things happening very organically, and individuals trying to figure out how to align with spiritual truths on their own terms. And you see it everywhere now. Again, we talked about the near-death experiences that you can see online or things on social media that people are sharing at a much more spiritual or a more heart-centered way. People are waking up. I know I keep saying that, but not because someone told them to, but because they're feeling it in themselves, not just feeling it happening, but feeling the urgency of it.
But one of the things that I am absolutely certain that will come about is we are going to start experiencing a greater simplicity and contentment to our life, greater reliance on our spiritual past versus our physical past. And one of the most important aspects of that for me is this issue of integrity. We will start witnessing people, even in positions of power in politics, exhibiting integrity and an adherence to that truth.
So that's why this lifetime for me and for I think all of us is so important. Yeah, it's not a race to the finish, or it's not just about surviving, because none of us is going to. It's not a test to see how many times you can fall down and get back up. But this lifetime, as all lifetimes, is a bridge. It's a bridge to the next level, the next depth of understanding. But we're translators of what is happening. We're standing right here in the middle between the age of ignorance and the age of subjectivity, more of a age around truth, and translating these metaphysical, spiritual truths into daily life. And every time that happens in your daily life, when you're able to take a higher understanding and apply it even to your body, which we've talked about being very, very recalcitrant to shifting and changing, every time that happens, you're bringing the divine right here into the muck, the mud, the messiness of this world. And, Hayden, as you said earlier, I really love this. Your life is a specialized curriculum where your soul is evolving toward the realization of itself, of yourself in this physical body. It's where we get to evolve. So again, it's not just about surviving, struggling, being dragged along in this physical body. It's using this time consciously to evolve, to grow, to come closer and closer to the truth of who you are at the level of your soul. And so this individual transformation, which is so important for each of us, out of this is what the new world, how the new world is going to be born.
And the beautiful thing about it to me is it gives every struggle, it gives every suffering that you're going through, every heartbreak, every loss, every betrayal, a certain kind of dignity that and meaning and purpose to your life. You begin to see that loss is a pathway. It's not an ending.
You made me think, Hayden, when you were speaking about that, and I appreciate what you shared just then, is I had a dream a couple of nights ago where I was in a beautiful, it felt like a sanctuary to me, really beautiful space. And I had this jewel, this gem that I was trying to hide so that the bad guys couldn't get it away from me. And I was going to put it in this font. I thought this is a really good hiding place. And all of a sudden, there's a golden light, this bright light that I did equate, even in the dream, with being my soul or my higher self, my psychic being were the words that came to me. This bright light kind of pulled me towards it and the jewel and said, do not put it there. That's not going to be basically a good place, a safe place. And I was looking around going, well, there are plenty of other hiding places where I can put it. And I was trying to find just the right little niche to stash it in so nothing would happen to this gem. And basically, as this magnet was pulling me toward it, and I think this is kind of the answer to the question I was having, Hayden, while you were speaking, is how do we find this knowledge? How do we learn this? I felt this magnet pulling me, basically saying, don't hide it at all. The work is to go in, to come in contact with that gem, that jewel that is the truth of who you are, the truth of who I am.
Well, that is going to require basically a pursuit of spiritual realization. You know, in the experience I had in 1987, I think I may have mentioned this before, the out-of-body experience that I had, one of the things that I was allowed to see, and it was amazing, was that time and space are curved. I was going it felt like 3 million miles an hour, as though I could see to the other side of the universe. But what I also realized in that moment is that we are so close to every dream that we want to fulfill that it's at our fingertips if we can but see things correctly. We're closer than we think. In Isaac Bentov's book, it was called Stalking the Wild Pendulum, in several of his handmade drawings, he showed how this could be done, of how the human being is capable of transcending the prison of their minds and tapping into this other reality, this reality that we are speaking about, that this work is founded upon, that is governing your individual life. And he's not the first one. There have been many teachers who were capable of teaching this, but here it was in physical terms that resulted in metaphysical outcomes. So, you can choose to start learning about it now, or you can choose to learn about it in another lifetime, but you will learn it, and that is that you're not who you think you are, that you are far more. And being involved in you, this spiritual being that is evolving in time and space, and that through spiritual realization, you come to that truth of who you are, is what this process is all about, and what the collapse and the destruction is leading us toward.
So we've talked about the age of ignorance, the Kali Yuga. We've talked about the middle zone, and now we are coming close to the end of our time talking about the age of subjectivity. Where do we go? Where do we go from here? If we accept the premise that we're in the stage of ignorance, I shouldn't assume that everybody
How can that be
sees
denied?
it the way that I see it. But if we do accept that, then we are moving to the middle zone, that bridge that's going to allow us to then move into the age of subjectivity at some point in time. Then we can choose to consciously participate in this evolutionary process instead of, we said, just being dragged along or just going along for the ride. But this shift is occurring right now. And the more conscious, the more of us can be, I think the quicker we're going to get through this difficult time. And that happens in our individual lives too. The more conscious we can become of what's happening, we can shorten the time that we're in pain and in dysfunction and disillusion. So
see, it's really important to understand for each of us that we're not trying to convince or change our minds. Your stuff, your past, the baggage that you carry is just that. But you're not your stuff. You're not your past. This is not the reference point of the future. The reference point of your future is the pursuit of your higher being. It's not about taming your craziness, which we all have. It's about igniting the aspiration of your heart. It's not about seeking consciousness, but it's about realizing that this is who you are.
truly, the age of ignorance, if we can even imagine this, has ushered in this opening to a new bridge, a new way of seeing things that we're calling the middle zone, that in time is going to take us over to the age of subjectivity. But it is not going to happen on its own. John Wayne's not coming to do it for us. Then we have to do this work. And I encountered it again last night where I moved into some anxiety and fear. And I realized, geez, it's not a one and done. It's the work of continuing the infusion and inversion of spiritual principle and realization into my everyday life, even at 3 a.m. when I'm encountering something I really need to surrender to, but I'm wanting to control instead.
But there's so much joy in that, or at least can be realized, the joy of consciously participating in that. Somehow in this process, we have to breathe life into this construct of individual transformation through spiritual realization. We have to begin to reveal that the context of your life, that is the source of the content of your life, is the truth of who you are.
Which is not usually who you think you are.
Exactly, which is the destination of every lifetime, of every soul that is seeking this realization that you are a spark of the divine, that you are divine.
Hayden, when we tell people you're more than what, you think you are, your life is a spiritual journey, it can sound a little cliche, but I know that what is true is this, that there is one truth and the divine adventure. Your life is the journey of God on the planet, of the invisible God in your visible body. You're not the prisoner of your past. I'm not the prisoner of past or of my mistakes. You are the pioneer of your future.
Well, this is not going to be about theory or conjecture. This is going to be about the lived experience of that truth. So let's summarize and take a look at all 3 of these episodes.
Which really represent the map of how we can move forward.
The territory on the map that the rest of our work together, the episodes that we'll produce after this will be dedicated to, are the dynamics related to the transformation of the individual through spiritual realization. You now know that the destination of your life that is contained in the curriculum that your soul has chosen for this lifetime is real. You know now the means of realizing that destination one lifetime at a time. Involution to evolution to realization. You are the divine in physical form seeking to realize that truth.
So we're making our way together through this age of ignorance and into the middle zone. And along the way, we're building the foundation for a new world, a new way of being, a new community. And this door is unlocking right now in the middle of the insanity and the ignorance. The real question is, will you choose to open it? And I'd really love to share this beautiful quote with you to take with you for the week. The significance of our existence here determines our destiny. That destiny is something that already exists in us as a necessity and a potentiality. The necessity of our being's secret and emergent reality, a truth of its potentialities that is being worked out. Both, though not yet realized, are even now implied in what has been already manifested. If there is a being, that is becoming, a reality of existence that is unrolling itself in time. What that being, that reality secretly is what you have to become. And so, to become is your life's significance. And if you're ready to take this journey deeper, I hope you will join us online. Our online community, you can find out more about it on becomingyoujourney.com. It's a private online project, so we offer monthly audio, video teachings, and really wonderful resources for self-discovery. And we also meet together monthly on Zoom to explore these consciousness topics together. And it's a wonderful space. Remember also that we do individual coaching. You can learn more about that at truthspringasheville.com.
So thank you so much for joining Terry and me for this episode of Becoming You. So we hope to see you next week.
Take care. Have a wonderful week.